Welcome to Art Talk. I'm Patricia Shippee, your host of Through the Eyes of the Artist, a program that focuses on art from a human perspective by getting to know the artists, their attitudes, motivations, even their lifestyles, all the things that influence their personal artistic expression, giving us an opportunity to understand and to vicariously participate in the process of the creation of art, and to see our world through the eyes of the artist. Art, as we know, is highly personal and individual, and can be eccentric and obsessive. When art communicates a sense of fun, we're delighted. Mundy Hepburn's neon glass sculpture is a combination of many different elements, including a sense of drama, absurdity, and playfulness. Mundy grew up on the Connecticut shoreline and perhaps was influenced by sand, since glass is made from sand. He's been experimenting with glass since he was a child and is a pioneer in the art of neon sculpture. He has exhibited his work in solo and group shows in museums and galleries from Connecticut to California, as well as in Buenos Aires, Argentina. His permanent sculpture installations can be seen at the Science Museum of Connecticut, the Museum of Neon Art in Los Angeles, the Neon Garage in New Haven, and at Panasonic headquarters in Osaka, Japan. His work is included in Contemporary Neon and Let There Be Neon, written by Rudy Stern, who describes Mundy as an alchemist, a magician with light. Welcome to Art Talk, Mundy.
Hi.
It's good to have you here. And besides glass and art and all of the fun things we're going to talk about today, how did you get started working with glass?
There was an old man named Paul Geyer making glass at the Guilford Fair. He was making little glass pigs, and I was trapped there. My mother was there selling children's dresses. And I watched the old man, he kept doing stuff, and I tried to steal a piece, and he looked at me. And I sort of sidled off and went back to my mother, and came back, and I watched him all day, and I was bored. And it was the only thing to do. So finally, at the end of the day, his old lady wife, who looked like a witch, she said, "You, come over here." I was like, oh my God. Me? Yeah. So I went around the back of their little, I guess it was like
a van that one.
No. It was this really broken down little trailer. It was a house trailer, a tiny little house trailer that was blue and white, and it was all grungy looking. And the guy had no front teeth, and he had gray hair and wire rimmed glasses, and he was real nasty to all the kids. And his old wife looked like a witch. And so anyways, I went around the back, and fearing for my life, and this little trap door opened that had been crudely cut in the siding of this little trailer. And this trap door opened, and this hand came out, and this box was shoved into my, and I grabbed it, and I was like, oh my God. And she slammed the door, and I thought, oh, she didn't hit me. So I ran back to my mother's, and I opened it up, and there was a glass swan.
And that's the beginning of the glass. Now we're going to go and see some examples of your glass by film.
Neat.
I had the feeling I was a fish underwater in this beautiful environment of movement and flowers and growths and forms. And what was that blue form that was sort of intertwining with a plant or a tree? It was moving, Mundy.
That's an aspect of the way that things are lit up. They're lit up by radio frequency. So I was holding that blue tree thing near the fern, and the energy was coming out of the fern and going through the air and going into the blue thing.
So it's electrical energy that you're playing with here.
This is what's neat, is when you change the direction of an electrical current often enough, the electrical current will get up off the wire and go through space like a radio wave. That's what radio waves are, is high frequency electricity. So the lights are lit up by television flyback transformers, which is a little tiny transformer like this, and then there's a little oscillator that drives them, and they light up the lights, and the electricity ends up going through the light and out into space. So the lights are antennas, and that's the circuit. A regular neon light, the electricity goes from one end to the other. You know, there's a transformer with 2 wires, and the electricity goes from one end to the other, and it changes direction 60 times a second. But the my lights are running about 25 kilohertz.
So your lights are not just neon lights, if you're explaining this to me.
Well, in 1899, Nikola Tesla invented this kind of electricity and this kind of light, and it was forgotten. He was kind of weird, and people didn't understand him. And I mean, he invented.
Was this an American invention, and was it
No,
for commercial use, or was it for art? The discovery of neon. I mean, light.
Well, it was a laboratory curiosity.
Okay.
It was the residue of liquid air that was made by, I think, Sir Humphrey Davy back in the 1860s, and then around that time, they were identifying all kinds of elements, and oh God, I don't know. And then Claude, what's his name? Georges Claude, C-L-A-U-D-E, from France, got a hold of a sample of neon gas and immediately saw the commercial potential when lit up, when you light a spark through it, it lights up red.
Yeah.
So this guy, Georges Claude, immediately set up a company, and he was using originally nails as electrodes welded into glass tubes. I mean, totally Mickey Mouse. And gradually it became a commercial thing, and it used to be franchised. And there were franchises set up over here, and you could rent a neon sign, but you could never own one. So finally the guys over here were like, yeah, right. So they just took the technology, stole it, and said, yeah, patent, whatever, I don't care. And they just started doing it. And it was originally beer signage exclusively, And then
Sure, you
Prohibition.
see them at the package stores
But what
everywhere.
I'm saying is the neon medium started its exclusive use because the beer companies were rich. They could afford to buy the franchised neons. So there were these huge window-filled drink Miller, whatever, you know. And there was legislation passed that you could only have beer signs of a certain number of square inches, and that's why to this day all beer signs are small. Because back in, I don't know, the 20s or something?
It's really interesting to me how you found this medium to work with the other ancient medium of glass making. So you've taken this ancient form of art and then combined it with, well, 1898, I think you said. Let's go look at another film about neon, and then we'll talk some more about neon.
I start out with a glass tube about 4 feet long and melt it over the ribbon burner. The cork in the end there goes to a tube in my mouth so that I can blow on it to prevent it from collapsing. I have to keep it spinning, turning, so that it doesn't crack or heat up unevenly. The idea is to do everything very gently and evenly. I wear glasses so that I don't burn my eyes because the heat is pretty intense after a while. And that's the swivel thing. Goes down to the light. The glass takes quite a while to heat up. You have to do it kind of gradually. Everything is gradual and gentle. The glass, after a while, will heat up and become wonderfully fluid, kind of like hot taffy or caramel. You can see that the shapes that are produced are also fluid. This mirrors the tendency of the material to behave the way it does. It's not like metal or wood or clay. It's like playing with hot candy. You can see how easily it bends once you heat it properly. This is the hand torch. It's used in the next step of the process, which is attaching electrodes to both ends of the light. Don't worry about it. Both the end of the electrode and the end of the light are heated up until they can be fused together. Again, the blow hose is used to keep up the pressure so the glass won't collapse. An electrode is attached at the other end in just the same way. The next step is to put the neon in the light.
Before that happens, however, the air that's inside the light has to be drained out. The light is attached to a tube which leads to the vacuum pump. The blowhose is always used to keep the glass from collapsing when the weld is made. You're gonna make that pump noise I like so much?
Yeah, if you want to.
Should I?
Would you like?
These wires attach the electrodes to a high-powered transformer.
This is the wires. I'll go down here to 9 volt. And I'll show you how to connect.
When this valve is opened, the vacuum pump will drain the air out of the light. The manifold is also attached to tanks containing various types of gases. The different types of gases create different colors in the light. A high voltage current is then passed through the light. This purges off the unwanted impurities. The light is heated to about 250 degrees. The bucket of water acts as a resistor, controlling the current going through the light.
Turn on.
Now we're recording, it takes a while. Go. The final step is to let the neon into the light. The valve to the neon tank is opened. It admits the right amount of gas into the light. The hand torch is used to remove the glass tube which allowed the gas in.
an electrical playground. There's so many processes involved in Mundy's art, and among other questions about color. Neon is one color, as I understand it. So how do you get all the different colors into the sculptures?
Well, neon is a gas the same color as air, and when you send a spark of electricity through air, it's a beautiful purple. When you send a spark through neon, it's red. When you send a spark through argon, it's purple. Krypton is kind of a licky gray, and the xenon is that wonderful wiggly line that does that strange thing. And then, of course, there's the various phosphors that are used. Like in the flower pictures, I dusted in all kinds of different color. They're white powders, and then when the light from the arc hits it, they'll glow whatever color. They're TV phosphors.
Oh.
So, like the color TV that you're looking at is, you know, there's electrons whipping out of that tube, whacking into the front of the screen, and each little dot is actuated, so the colors that you're seeing are actually phosphors glowing on the front of the screen. And I use those same phosphors to mess around with and make weird lights.
Okay, as an alchemist would.
As a kid would.
Oh, yeah, okay, the curiosity. Mundy, we have to take a short public service announcement break, but we're going to be right back for more playing with children's ideas. Let's go.
Art is a process that fills our lives. See it, enjoy it. This public service announcement is brought to you by the Griffis Art Center, New London, Connecticut.
Mundy is continually making things. I mean, he made his own burner. He figured out how to use a vacuum cleaner for pushing some of this electrical energy around. So, Mundy, to me, exploration and experimentation is as much a part of your art as the product, as the art itself. So tell me about that. What's the process for you?
Well, the product is nothing more than a record of my experience, and the experience is the art.
Yeah, yeah,
Really.
okay, yeah. I mean, if it's too easy, you're not interested in it.
I've had a problem with having things be too easy, but it doesn't have to be hard anymore, because I've been doing it 25 years. I mean, when I was 8, I was melting light bulbs on the kitchen stove after coming home from the glass blower place. And my mother attacked me and said, "What are you doing?" And I had these things in my hand, and she grabbed them, and she goes, "They're not sharp." And I said, "Of course not." And that was it.
So you were experimenting from a very early age.
Oh, yeah.
With
yeah.
glass.
With all
glass.
kinds of stuff. I mean, with
Okay.
welding and with, you know, when
So
I
you
was...
were one of those curious kids. I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No,
it's
it's fine.
fascinating for me to talk with you as an artist, because you're scientific, you know a lot about chemistry, electricity.
Well, it's reality. It's studying reality. It's like,
Yes,
what are
okay.
we looking at here? What are we
Okay.
dealing with? How does it all
Right.
work?
Yeah. And that's what the artist's mind should do, to look at nature, to look at our reality, and
Well,
then
that's what all of us should do.
Well, yes, but particularly the creative mind.
Well, I think that, I mean, business people, you know, the art of making a deal, the art of cleaning a toilet skillfully, you know, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
easy.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's a whole series of art that I saw a show recently, actually, in New York called Maintenance Art. You're absolutely right. So we're all creative people, is what you're saying.
Well, I think that artists are put on a pedestal, and I don't think that's really very realistic, because everybody says, oh, I'm not creative. Come on. You know, you're standing there. You're growing new cells.
And we just keep making beautiful things, some of us, in one way or another.
Well, if you choose to interact with materials, then you're
Yeah.
going to be making art products. But I mean, some people make video art or,
Yeah,
I don't know, all kinds of stuff.
sure, yeah. Well, let's go look at making art, and I'm going to ask you to tell us what we're seeing on this tape that artist Joan Levy did for us, describing many of the processes of your work. So let's go look at that tape now.
Oh, this is the hot glass. I just dipped it in the furnace, and I dried, what do you call it, cooled it with newspaper.
Don't you use gloves with?
No, that's just wet newspaper. The hotness doesn't go through. The steam takes the hot away. And you don't even feel it's not even
Really?
warm. It's really neat. It's gooey, too. That's the cool thing about glass, is that it's this gook.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And right now, I don't know what I'm making.
Are you, yeah, I was just going to say, do you have something in mind before you begin this shape?
Probably not.
Okay, so it just happens. So, you know, at
Actually-
the end it looks spontaneous, and yet
Well,
it's not
it's not as
spontaneous.
spontaneous as I'm making it out to be. I'm actually trying to make, I don't know what.
You made that furnace, didn't you?
This is the glass furnace. It's just a pile of bricks, and that's the gooey stuff in the middle. It's red hot in there, but we have a light shining on it.
Okay. There's the studio, the glass blowing that you do in this open studio.
Yeah. There it goes. You know, the bubble's coming up a bit. It's really difficult to keep that bubble even, because if you don't have a nice, even, thick wall, the air will just blow through one side. And so you got to rotate it and kind of tease it into shape. And the whole thing is temperature controlled.
And patience.
You swear a lot, at least I do. Little by little you get it right.
Is there a size element here that you know where you're going, how much glass is at the end of that tube? And
Yeah, actually, that's what's really gratifying about making homemade glass and having plenty of goo to mess with. Like those little flowers you saw before, those start out with tubes. Now I'm reheating this glob now, and I don't know what I'm going to make. But the little stuff is much less gratifying than this big glop. It's so much fun to mess around with the gooey stuff. And then after a while you realize, oh dear, everything that I make, if I don't smash it, it's there. And so there's a record of the dance. The stuff is quite strong and gooey. Is much stronger hot than cold.
oh,
And I've
that's a rather bizarre shape, excuse me.
yeah, I made a whole lot of them. Then I got irritated and smashed them all.
Oh, no. Do you lose some of the pieces? I mean, with the temperature?
Well, I don't
and
lose
the-
anything on tape, Pat.
No. How you know, what's the record? Do you have a terrible record of successes versus not successes?
Everything that I make is a mistake.
Oh, good.
A fortuitous, hopefully, mistake. And oftentimes a new idea or form will be the result of something that's just almost in control or mostly out of control. The idea is to learn to be out of control with great precision. Now that ain't easy. Sort of working on the edge.
So you really don't start with an idea. You
No,
go-
I actually do. Sometimes I don't, but a lot of times if I don't start with some kind of a fantasy, I won't know what to do.
Look at the light there. Whew. Yeah.
The yellow hot glass is pretty.
Well, fantasy is
You got to dump
what
water
your
on
work
it
is
to.
about.
Fantasy is what my whole life is about, and actually I've found that that's valuable to other people who work in great structure or under great stress or discipline. The idea, just the look of the freedom of the form and expression seems to be gratifying to people. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
So I'm beginning to understand my place in the world and the service that I give to other people. Just, doing something that's enjoyable to experience. And now it's going into that oven there. It's 800 degrees. Burns my hair off. That's why my hair is so charming. Now that's a hexagonal mold made of insulation block. This is going to be a vase. That's a hot goop. The stuff is so much fun to play with. That glob there weighs maybe, 10 pounds.
And did you make that form that it's going
Yeah,
into?
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so you've thought that through too.
Yeah,
haven't you?
I cut out a piece of cardboard on the kitchen table and then, it's stuck.
Oh, no. Oh, there
There
it
you go.
comes. Okay.
See, if you leave it in there too long, it'll crack. If you leave it in too short, it glops. You can see it's still wilting. I got to rotate it so it doesn't fall like into a gloppy type shape. It's so neat. You can feel it setting up as it. See, it's still just barely moving. See it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
See, and you got to catch it.
Ooh, carefully.
Yeah, it's
Well,
difficult.
this is a dance. You use
It's
the
the
word
record. Yeah,
dance.
it's the record of a dance.
Yeah, yeah.
What we got here now? What am I doing? I guess that's the sun shining on it.
Ooh. What are you holding it over? Heat or?
No, that is just some white refractory wool that I drop the things into. It's like a little nest so that I can grab it and shove it in the annealer. Because I used to just break off the glass right into the annealer, but it ended up there was a whole bunch of broken glass and trouble. This is the civilized way to do it. At least I hope. That's the other thing. I mean, they got schools for this.
Well,
but of course, I never went.
yeah. But you're almost like a scientist as well, because.
Well, that's the cool thing is
Yeah.
I don't have to be something. I can be me. I can experiment with technology if I'm not feeling artistic, and if I'm feeling sort of emotional, then I can mess around with shape and form, and so it's a nice mixture of things to do.
It certainly is.
So you don't have to do one thing. I don't have to do one thing only.
Yeah, because there's a myriad of processes to your work. Now, tell us what you're putting it into an annealer.
Annealer is a 900-degree oven that burns my hair off.
Yeah.
And it's got to
okay.
sit in there overnight. These are the finished forms with dog for scale.
And so
That's going to be the
that-
base of a huge sculpture. Oh, look, here's borax going into the batch. I got to weigh up a whole bunch of different chemicals to make the glass. Right now, it's borax time. That's a scale that I got from the local grocery store dude.
Great.
And it didn't work, and my little daughter sat on it and then got up and it worked.
Well, now borax is part of the
Yeah,
glass.
8 pounds, 11 ounces borax, get it just right. It's, the glass is a nice clean sand that I buy from up in Windsor. It's called New England silica. It's just a nice white, looks like hourglass sand. So it's sand, which you got to weigh. You got to weigh everything real carefully. Sand, soda, potash, borax, lime, all kinds of good stuff. And then it's so cool because you mix up this powdered mineral and then roast it at yellow heat for about overnight, really. And it's glass. It's magic. You
It
got to
is
write
magic.
everything down and be careful.
Oh.
Got to take notes and records, and it's all very chemical and scientific. But it's also an element of cooking. Like, I envision myself to be some fancy
wonderful
French
chef.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
crazy, maybe a Chinese chef or Italian or French, depending on my mood.
Yeah, yeah.
This is actually a modified Italian glass batch that I've hopelessly Americanized. Now the borax always dries out and gets lumpy, so it's a pain in the butt. That's why we taped it. Because the other stuff is easy, you just dump it in.
Oh, I see.
And
So
behind
those
there's
are-
the glass house,
Yeah.
that charming structure.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Which is where you do the glass
Well,
blowing
yeah, it's
and
just
stuff.
a shack. I wish
Yeah. And
someday
then-
I'll make a real place to do glass.
And then it's in another studio where you do the electrical parts.
Yeah, because the weather doesn't permit.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, I don't have money. It's $500 a month for propane, which propane is a very expensive addiction. I mean, you know, the furnace does not get turned off once it's turned on. So while I'm grinding the borax
yeah,
here,
yeah.
got to push it all through a screen. Because if you have lumps, then you get bad glass. You get junk like impurities. What do you call it? Seeds and stones and ugly things.
Yeah.
Now comes the nice clean soda ash. I wish everything was this easy. You just dump
Have
it
you
in.
been to any of the Italian glass making factories?
No, I never.
Just,
did.
you mentioned Italian
Well, I have some Italian friends.
recipes that you use.
I badgered a man long enough that he finally called me up one day and said, all right, here's the formulas. You got a pencil? He was very kind. He gave me a wonderful batch, an Italian hand-working glass. Because there's many different glasses. I mean, Pyrex is a super high-melting glass. I got to mix everything up, just roll it around. Pyrex is a super high-melting glass that would really not be adapted to this. And like window glass has a lot more lime in it, and it's higher melting and not as fun to work hand-wise. You know, lead's a good hand-working glass, but it's toxic as hell, so I don't want to mess with it.
But also, depending upon, for instance, the size of the ultimate piece that you're after, whether it's a large sculpture or small pieces, I mean, does that determine what kind of a mix?
I don't know. Right in there is about 165 pounds of junk, all the different stuff, the sand, etc. And my furnace will accommodate just that much.
I see.
So, and then of course, I've recently discovered that the door of my furnace is too small to withdraw anything more than about 15 pounds of glass at a time. So I outsmarted myself. But maybe next time I'll build a bigger door and I'll get stronger and, you know, do it better. Now right here, I'm walking out, that was last night, and this is this morning, well actually a couple days ago this morning.
Yeah.
And I'm tired, and the dog is awake. She knows what's going on, and I don't. And I'm going to shovel the junk in. First, I got to put on my mask.
Do you have to let it sit overnight, or is
No,
that
no,
just
I
the
just don't have-
schedule was that week?
I don't have the strength. I mean,
Okay.
see, what has to happen
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
you know, I worked out the glass the previous day, then I turned up the furnace overnight. Now the furnace is white hot. I got up at 3 a.m. and jacked the gas all the way up. It's propane.
Okay,
Runs on
okay.
propane.
Yeah.
$500 worth a month. It's like $20 a day or something. So the idea is to not destroy my back completely while working as quickly and efficiently as possible. So when I'm doing glass, I ain't doing nothing else.
I bet not.
We're getting ready to shovel in here. I think there's about 30 shovelfuls per batch. And it takes all day to shovel it in, and then I roast it overnight, and then the next day I turn it down, and it's ready. Fresh glass. Ah, such a treat. Seems to take so long on tape. In real life, it seems to go super fast because I'm always exhausted when I'm doing it. Because, I mean, the furnace doesn't stop. Look at that. That's hot.
So timing is also a very important element in
Well, survival is the most important element because the furnace is relentless. It is hot, it is going, and you either do it or die. So I shovel in about 6 scoops at a time and then let that melt down for a couple hours. You'll see, it's just sand. It looks like just sand, but it's sand and a whole bunch of other delicious ingredients that make for a perfect batch. It makes a nice, gooky, low-melting hand-working glass. And see, now that's the stuff right as it like 2 minutes after I shoveled in a bunch, it's already starting to vitrify. At first it turns into this disgusting cottage cheese stuff and bubbles.
And then it's liquid. It's
And then,
suddenly
yeah,
liquid.
it's
and-
magic. It's totally
Yeah,
magic.
It is magic. Well, it's magic to look at the pieces, and they look so ethereal and spontaneous.
Well, they have to be. I don't have the strength.
But there's so much involved in the whole. The processes are incredible.
It's fun. My
well,
God.
I'm amazed, because even the measuring and the formula.
You know what's wild is that I'm having so much fun, and people that see the products go, oh, they're such fun. And I'm like, how did you know? And I realized that the glass is a mode of communication. And that's what's important to other people. What's important to me is, oh, wow, wasn't it cool to make this blech? And it didn't crack.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
somebody else goes, oh, look at the spontaneity, the artistry. I'm like, the what? It's
Well, go back to titles a sec, because, see, to me, your pieces are all so happy. Magic Garden is the piece in Japan.
yeah.
And
I'm not into negativity. I mean, I'm a negative person. And so my art, I have to strive for
Happiness.
positivity
Yeah, yeah.
because
Good.
I'm, shall we say, hard to live with.
Oh, well, I think, aren't we all? What's a dweezelator?
Oh, it's a silly name that a friend of mine made up to show the arc that moves. It's just a silly name.
Okay.
We had quite an experience, my friend Kurt and I. I met this man, and I said, I need something to light up these lights. And he said, no, it can't be done. So I was at the local dump, and there was a guy hacking at the back of a TV set with a hatchet. And I walked up near him, and I kind of turned around, and I said, geez, I sure wish I could understand how they light up those lights that move inside. The man turned to me, and he said, what you need is the power supply from a color TV set. In fact, I have one at home. I'll bring it to you. I'm like, who was that? I was like, thanks. So he brought this thing, and I had it at home for months, and I thought, oh, what a dummy. He was wrong. And then my neighbor, who was 20 years old, 6'5", 240, and drunk with a Foster's in his hand. Hey, Monday, quit your bitching. Just suck it out and put the gas in. I'm like, Bill, shut up. He's like, just do it. Okay, Bill, sit down, okay? So I said, put your fingers on it. I hope you get a shock. So his arm was in the way, and I put a little thing on the pump, and I sucked out the air, and I put the gas in, like he said, with this power supply on there.
Right.
And I hear him go, whoa! And I said, did you get a shock? And he's like, look. And I said, oh, thanks, Bill.
It worked, it worked.
It worked.
Yeah, so more experimentation. But it began with curiosity, and that's what your work is all about.
Well, it
from the
began with
beginning.
me willing
Yeah,
to waste
yeah.
time.
Yeah, well, and
And
curiosity and purposefulness. Mundy, you know, artists hate to be categorized, and so I want to ask you, from your own telling, where do you put yourself in the niche of contemporary art?
Well, I'm an artist that hates to be no. I don't know. Other people, that's other people's job.
Are there other artists? Are there neon artists? I know Rudy Stern wrote these
Well, there's a lot of
books,
people
but-
that make tubular art, and now there's people starting to make free-form glass and interesting things that light up with radio frequency. But it's interesting that the radio frequency has been around for 100 years, and people are just beginning to really exploit the medium. And I think that the beer sign companies and beer and all
Which is
that,
where it all
which is where it was
started.
originally
Yeah.
popularized,
Yeah.
have tainted the name neon. It's like neon, garbage. Ugh, I hate neon signs. Some weird people like neon signs.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that neon garage in New Haven is fascinating.
Well, those lights are deliberately softer and totally different technology than the
But it's
other stuff.
softening the technology of the world.
It's humanizing.
To go into an underground kind of garage place and then have this happy light all around you moving is rather nice.
Yeah, there's this
Yeah.
dude called Omar who runs that garage and many others. And I said, Omar, do you like the lights? He said, yes, they're okay. I said, Omar, do you like the lights? Should I make more of them? He goes, well, they're weird. And then he goes, Mundy, make more weird. I said, okay, Omar. And that was such a clean thing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, Omar, I'll make more weird.
And you did.
So
And you
that's
did.
my job. I make more weird.
To our delight, Mundy. And I'm afraid that we have to turn the lights out for Art Talk today, but thanks for being with us, Mundy. It's been a delight for me. It's
Thanks.
been fun.
It was fun.
And thank you for joining us for this week's Art Talk. I hope you've enjoyed meeting with Mundy Hepburn and seeing how complicated the process of luminous glass sculpture is. Until next time, I'm Patricia Shippee.